on my pots, that's this section here, how it kind of kicks inward and creates a little bit of a recessed area for your fingers. And I leave the seam on the exterior too, so that there's multiple seams going on in the piece. There's seams where the foot ring meets the molded base. There's a seam where the molded base meets the throne cylinder. There's a seam where it started. And sometimes I'll do a two-part handle that also has a seam, so that there's this repetition of a design element. It hasn't been cut off of the bat yet, and that's good. I'm going to leave it on there until I'm done darting, so that way it maintains its roundness on the bottom as well as the top. And when I'm mapping it out and deciding where to put this dart, where the handle's going to go, I'm going to get down low and I'm going to look at the swoops and the undulations in the piece. If there is a side that doesn't look like a great drinking side, like maybe it's a little bit higher and the other three swoops are a little bit lower, then I'll position it so that that side is facing me, and I'll cut the dart out of that area because that'll be the side with the handle. And I'm going to place the dart in between two high points. So I place it directly in the trough, not at the crest. And I'll draw it on there with the stylus first so that you guys can see. It's a very narrow, double-pointed dart. The top of the dart is even with the most outward point of the form, and then the bottom of the dart goes almost all the way down to the base. That part will get smeared in and get the handle put over top of it anyway, so you don't really see either the top or the bottom. Then I'm going to cut this out at a 45-degree angle. So I hold my blade and I cut, holding it pivoted at a 45, and I'll do both sides at the same 45-degree angle. So I don't flip it and then cut the opposite angle. I want to make sure that they're both going like this or like this and not like this. It's quite small. You can always take more away later, but it makes a surprisingly large amount of negative space. The reason it's cut at a 45 is because that gives you greater surface area to blend them together and attach them. So I'm going to push one side of this in really gently using a couple overlapping little pushes. And what I'm doing is I'm pushing, kind of coaxing this part inward and starting to span the gap that's been created. I'll do the same thing with the other side of the dart, but it's going to come up and over. So I have one side getting pushed in and I have one side getting pushed over that. And I'll use my whole hand to grab the piece and start to wiggle and push these walls. Sometimes I have to get my pincher claws in there, kind of wiggle. This is why I want to do this when the rim is just set, but the rest of the pot is still very pliable, because I have to get it to span this gap, and it won't do that when it's fully leather hard. So if you see in there, now it's spanned that gap, and there's a little bit of overlap. On the outside, it looks like this right now. So I'm going to preserve the exterior seam, but I'm going to blend in my interior seam. So that's part of me being tricky and throwing people off my trail. I'm going to blend it in on the inside. It's going to compress the seam. It's going to make it a lot more structurally sound. And I'm going to start by using my fingers to blend the clay. I'll hold and brace the exterior, and then my finger comes in and starts to smear the clay across the gap.